This is a question I would ask a number of reverse questions to my client as well. So first things first is when that next session is. So just for example's sake, it was a morning session and we had 24 hours to recover until the next morning session. Then the recovery sort of time frame doesn't matter as much because we've got 24 hours to do so. Where the science lies is if we've got sort of less than 8 hours or sort of less than 12 hours basically to your next session, that recovery window becomes really, really important. So that 30 minutes post session is really important to get food back into. But there's exceptions to that as well. So if you do a lot throughout the day, there's other sports coming into play, maybe you're a tradie or you're just really active, then that recovery window is also super important. For me, if it's a quality session, I'd say it's still going to be important as well. If you were looking to drop weight or body fat, and you had 24 hours to your next session and you were just adding a protein shake in for the sake of it, I'd say that could be an easy, 100 calories you could easily get rid of and just wait till your next meal. If that was 45 minutes, an hour, it would be fine. General rule of thumb, I sort of say, make sure you're eating within the first couple of hours. And dependent on when that next session is, that's when that 30-minute recovery window becomes really important. And then that also ties into what food is the priority. So I usually sort of stick to the 3 R's. So rehydrate, refuel, rebuild. So rehydrate obviously with some form of liquid. How much really depends on how much sweat you've lost. So you can do sweat rate testing. Refuel with carbohydrates. And again, the amount really depends on what your goals are. So very difficult to give sort of specific numbers. I generally start with about 50 grams worth of carbohydrates in that first couple of hours. And then rebuild with protein. So that's generally, as a starting guide, usually sort of 20 to 30 or 20 to 40 grams worth of protein in that recovery meal as well. So if it's a morning session, that could be eggs, toast, avocado from anti-inflammatory fats. I like to throw that in there as well. Maybe a coffee on the side, because really an egg on its own is actually not that high in protein. You're probably looking anywhere from 5 to 8 grams worth of protein. So rather than having 6 eggs, I usually sort of say 2 to 3 with breakfast, have a milky coffee on the side, and we're going to get that, and a seeded toast, and you're going to get close to sort of 30 to 40 grams worth of protein. Toast, you've got your glycogen being replenished with carbohydrates from the bread, and then a coffee is going to be your rehydration. And so that's another bit of a myth, is that people think that coffee dehydrates them, but it'll actually sort of aid hydration as well. It doesn't replace water, still very important to drink water, but yeah, it won't dehydrate you. Alcohol will be the liquid that does dehydrate you. Other options, could really sort of work with the client to what they sort of normally have for breakfast. So yogurt, muesli, fruit. It could be an overnight oats with some chia seeds and things like that through it, and a high protein yogurt. It could be a protein smoothie where we use a protein powder. So a number of different options that we can use.
Would you say protein or carbs is more important?
Really depends when the next session is. So if the next session is 24 hours away, protein would be the priority for me. If the next session was within that 8 to 12 hours, so morning session and then an afternoon session, I actually believe the carbohydrate content is the most important part. Doesn't mean that you don't need the protein, but we really want to replenish the glycogen as quick as possible. And in that sort of 30 to 60 minute window post-training is when our body naturally has a better uptake of carbohydrates post-training anyway. So we really want to make sure you're refueled so that you can train again properly in the afternoon. If you just focus on protein and then you've got another session in the afternoon, chances are you're inhibiting your performance for that afternoon session as well. So lots of it depends.
It's really that 20-30 minutes after you exercise, when you get home, you want to get that recovery.
Ideally, unless if you train on a Saturday and the next session wasn't until Monday, I'd say it doesn't really matter in that 30-minute window. Just wait until you can get your next feed in.
So let's say if you come home from a ride and you're starving, what should the first thing you consume be? Or should you not be coming home starving on the ride? Yeah,
if you're coming home starving, I'd say maybe you need to look at what you've eaten before the session and then what you've consumed throughout the session. Obviously, post-training, you're going to be hungry, and that's great because hopefully you've got an appetite. We can have a really great recovery meal. But I would say, first of all, why that starving? If you've gone out fasted for a quality session and you've probably not performed as well as you could. But, you know, again, any of those really quality, wholesome breakfast options are going to be fantastic. If you're training in the afternoon, then that might be to dinner. But some quick and easy snacks are generally, again, come back to a really simple rule of the 3 R's. So this is where chocolate milk has got its sort of famous recovery or post-training sort of benefit from. So because it contains sugar, obviously, so that's going to be replenishing the glycogen stores. It's a liquid, so we're rehydrating, and then it's a milk-based drink, so obviously it's got protein in it as well. So a lot of people have chalky milk just because they have heard somewhere that it's good for recovery, but there's good reason for it. So that's a really convenient one. It could be a protein shake just with a piece of fruit, for example. Could be a yogurt tub with a bit of fruit and, you know, a little bit of nuts and seeds through it as a just quick and easy grab and go option, and then into your next meal, whenever that may be.
With those like different types of proteins, there's lots out there. There's like whey, the casein protein, like pea protein.
Yep.
They're all different. What one should you be having?
So this will come back to preferences if there's any allergies and tolerance as well. So top of the range is going to be a whey protein isolate. And so it's just been, I guess, processed to a point where it's your highest value of protein or highest protein content. So it's generally sort of 90 to 95% pure protein. It's still dairy based though as well. So if you can't tolerate dairy or you just generally don't like dairy, then obviously a plant-based source is going to be better. And if that's the case, I generally try and get a blend. So with a whey protein, it will have a complete amino acid profile, which is great for recovery because we need to ensure that we're getting all the amino acids for our muscles to repair. A plant-based generally doesn't have a complete amino acid profile. So I generally get one that's a mixture. It might be a pea protein that's also mixed with like a rice protein, for example. So I generally try and get like a plant-based blend, and there's plenty on the market now. And your casein protein is a little bit of a slower absorbed protein as well. So it might be more beneficial as a pre-sleep sort of consumption, as opposed to just after training. Your whey protein is absorbed a bit more quickly. So it's going to be better for immediately post-training option.
And the amino acid blends you were talking about, what benefits does that have?
So we've got essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids, and we want to get all of those essential amino acids to support a number of different processes in the body, but particularly from a recovery point of view, our muscles do need all of those essential amino acids. So for example, a lot of vegetarian or vegan-based proteins won't have all of those essential amino acids. So a blend generally will cover off, and particularly leucine is the amino acid that we're looking for from a recovery point of view. I generally get athletes to aim for sort of a 3 gram leucine content in their post sort of training sort of drink or smoothie or whatever it might be.